You've counted every calorie, tried every diet, spent hours in the gym, and still something's missing. You want more than just weight loss. You want your energy back. You want your confidence restored. You want a way of living that doesn't feel like punishment. Welcome to Master Your Metabolism, where we cut through the noise, ditch the fads, and give you a real plan to become the healthiest, strongest version of you. Hosted by our team of expert coaches with proven strategies, science-based tips, and real-life encouragement, not just to help you lose fat, but actually create that lifestyle that you love. You've tried everything. Now, let's try what actually works. This is your turning point. Let's go. Hi there, everybody. Welcome to Master Your Metabolism. I am here not just with Calvin, but the Dr. Bill Campbell, and we are so excited. Dr. Bill Campbell we've been following him for years through all of his research with dietary protein intake to optimize body composition, rapid fat loss strategies, diet breaks, and just weight loss in general over time. And his most recent work, kind of how our coaching has shifted for the purpose and the reasons that I went through it. His research has changed recently, and I am so excited to hear his story, get into it, and learn all about the new research and what he is studying and finding. So welcome. Thank you for being here.
Yeah, thank you for the invitation. I feel like we've done this 5 times, but we never actually have done a podcast before.
I know.
Well,
We met at a convention.
I was going to say that we've seen him at many events for sure. And I remember the first time that we met him was at the Fat Muscle event about 5 years ago in Tampa. And I made it a point that day because I knew he was going to be there. You know, for those that don't know, Bill Campbell he's a household name for any coach that has a good knowledge base, you know. So he headed the Matador study, which was a huge study that needed to be done, that really kind of looked over refeeds, carb refeeds, diet breaks, you know, and fat loss and muscle gain that came from it, or maintenance of muscle. And this set the standard for a lot of coaches for many years with the back-to-back carb refeeds, and really was a really positive movement in how coaching is done because of the reduction in negative adaptations. So of course, when I saw him at that first event, I've had to pin him down and ask him questions, you know, and pretty much every event since then, Brooke teases me because now this is going to make you feel really uncomfortable. She calls you my man crush.
Love it.
When they're there, when Bill's there, I'm asking questions. I'm going to pin him down, and
I love it.
Sure enough. So it's really exciting to have you on today to share your knowledge, because what you are into right now is really going to address the majority of the people listening to this. So I'm excited to share, you know, some of the knowledge with them. So thanks for coming on.
Yeah.
I think to open it up, I would love if you would share your reason for your recent shift in research.
Yeah. So let's talk about what it used to be and what it is now. So my entire career, I've been a fat loss researcher. So back from my graduate school days, there I was studying almost solely women with obesity. Then when I got my own lab, I really started focusing on more bodybuilding, mostly females, and recreational bodybuilders, like people that want to optimize their physiques within a maintainable lifestyle. But again, most of my research focused on younger females. Losing fat, and then I would say what I've really focused on is maintaining muscle during these diet phases or these fat loss phases. And then probably for the last 3 years, I've shifted all of this to studying menopause-aged women, or fitness women. So women who lead a fitness-oriented lifestyle that are going through menopause. And so I just call them just like menopause fitness, essentially. So still looking at a lot of fat loss research questions, performance-based questions. And you also asked the reason for this. So the reason was my wife went through menopause, and she, I don't know, probably in her late 40s is when this happened. And she, like a lot of other women, she gained, to her, a lot of body weight and body fat. And I always say, well, luckily for her, she's married to a fat loss researcher. I've been doing this my whole career, and I've helped her in the past lose body fat. And my wife is your typical fitness woman. She lifts weights, doesn't do a lot of cardio, but tracked her macros, protein and all that. But for some reason, this time, all of the strategies that I've used with her and others in the past, it did not work. And we just kept lowering her calories to the point where it wasn't very sustainable or healthy. And I would also add, her weight gain was not the worst of her experience. She had other issues along with her menopause transition that I think were more serious, which I definitely wasn't prepared to help with.
Yeah.
But I thought I could help, and she asked me to help with the weight loss. And because I couldn't, that really stimulated, I guess, just more research questions. And it's funny, all throughout my professional career, I've always had a lot of middle-aged women, even though I wasn't studying them. They just, communicate with me a lot. And a lot of times they would say, hey, this isn't how it works with menopause women, or when are you going to study? And I just always kind of just like brushed it aside. And then I guess ultimately the answer is it hit home for me. And I'm so passionate, like it gave me a new fire professionally, because it's made me learn about progesterone, estradiol, testosterone, like the things that it's not just calories. There's a lot of other things that I've been forced to learn, and I love learning. So it's sad for my wife, but good for my intellectual curiosity, I guess.
But it's good for your wife because, again, it's the validation. And I think a lot of women I know that I coach, and after going through it myself and going to multiple professionals and physicians and thinking something is wrong with you, to finally have that validation to know, okay, this is not like, it's not me. I'm trying all the things, I'm doing all the things, and it's not working. And there's something else there. So having a spouse that's like, you know what? The reason that you're doing this is to be able to not just help your wife, but you saw and felt what she was going through, and being able to use your research in a way that is going to impact so many women to have that validation, know what's going on, and be able to use this knowledge to be able to change the trajectory of where they are. Because a lot of women, because we've always been in shape and always done the things, to now feel like you don't have control and you don't know what's going on, it's very defeating. So I just, Calvin had his man crush, but now, like, knowing your direction of where you're going, like, I'm all about listening and talking to you all the time. So
Hey, he's spoken for. He's spoken for it. Well, we've been coaching for about probably a little bit over 10 years now, and menopause came at us and we had to learn it. But I'm sure you've seen over, the last at least 5 years, how much it's actually evolved as far as like the knowledge of it and how much attention's been put on it. Because in the beginning, when we first started, doctors were still not even acknowledging it was an issue. They were giving women antidepressants to handle it, right? Which
Yeah.
some of them are still doing that, but there is more acceptance now and understanding that when they go to see their doctor, that they're not crazy, and that there is something going on. So in the process of that, and coaching and research, we are finding ways to combat it, and we're learning to understand it and how to work with it. But what makes your work so important right now is what I see happening is that there's a lot of focus on just learning how to manage it and get through, but who's actually looking at how to take women in menopause and actually have them excel at the same rate that they did at 20. The fitness related ones, the one that want to continue increasing body composition at a high level. And that's where it gets more tricky. It's not as simple as just managing menopause at this point. Now it's learning to optimize in that time the same way they did, prior to that. So I know that there's going to be a lot of great things coming from these studies, and that is going to contribute to what's going on right now. But you're the first person that I know that is actually researching that, that to actually work with higher level, athletes and keep them at that place where they can still enjoy doing the things they want to do at that level.
Yep.
So yeah. So this is going to be great things coming out. So I do encourage anybody that's listening to this to follow Bill Campbell's Instagram and sign up with his
the
classes that
subscription.
he offers with this.
Yeah, and it's funny you mentioned the validation. So in my mind, I'm going out of my way on social media to validate. I've committed to myself, like I'm going to do 100 posts about those stories, real stories from women, like my wife, just like you said. I mean, I'm not going to lie, I'm also using it to recruit for my study. But a lot of women won't ever want to do a study, but I'm intentionally validating this because I mean, it's hard for me because I'm an energy balance guy. Like nobody preached calories in, calories out more than me. And I still believe it's not like I'm saying that's worthless. I'm just open to the idea that this specific population, a small segment of them, just don't seem to respond the way that they used to respond unless that deficit is very aggressive and not sustainable. So I would say I'm open to that idea. But the problem with the research, many of which I've published and contributed to, it doesn't account for this. Like, it works when you give people a diet, they lose body fat. But nobody's ever given menopause fitness women who are saying they're having problems. Nobody's ever sought out that slice of the population to study them. And that's what I'm seeking to do.
Yep. And you've already done some research. We've already kind of seen some of the studies that you've done. So can you share a little bit about what you found and things that you have already kind of had in the work?
Yeah, so I'd say the first thing, well, yeah, we've done a few smaller studies, but they're going to be published in a different sequence. So I'm going to start with the way that we're going to start publishing some of this stuff. So we did a large and massive menopause fitness survey. This is the first survey ever conducted in resistance trained women. And we actually had pre, peri, and post menopause, but the main reason here was to do peri and post. So it's funny, there's probably thousands of surveys in menopause population, but never has there been one, because I looked and I had my team look. There's never been one in fitness women. So
Right.
we have there's 5 domains, a demographic section, and then the 4 fun sections are a body composition and weight loss resistance section, nutrition, fitness, which covers resistance training, cardio, power, other Pilates, yoga, all that stuff. And then we have a hormone therapy section to this survey. So the first thing that I want to do is to at least get it out into the research literature that women claim that they are experiencing weight loss resistance. So we're going to publish that part of that survey first. Now, just because you claim it, that doesn't make it true. Maybe they're not adhering to their diet. I
Right.
mean, I think that's the case for a lot of people, but I don't necessarily believe that's the case for every woman in this situation. So if we can get that out there just to say, hey, X% of the women in our survey are claiming that they have weight loss resistance, now I have the validity or the justification to start designing research to investigate that. So we did the survey first, and now my lab team is towards the end of planning or finalizing our protocol to investigate weight loss resistance. And the way that we're going to do that is we're going to recruit menopause aged women who claim they have weight loss resistance or not, and they have to be fitness women. And we're also going to recruit women less than 40 who are premenopausal, and we're going to give them the same diet and have them do daily weigh-ins. And we're going to see, is there a difference in the response between these 2 age groups, essentially? So women who claim weight loss resistance and not, and then younger women who should be metabolically healthy and in theory aren't struggling with this. So that's where we're at now. And then we actually did complete another rapid fat loss study. I think I may have talked about that. I don't know if we had done it at the time. I think I saw you guys at one of the Dallas conferences that I was at. So, we can also talk about that study as well. So that study's done. We just haven't published it yet.
Yeah. Tell me about that one.
Are you allowed to talk about that before it's published?
I am, because we presented on it last summer. So let me give the theoretical rationale for this. And once again, I'm going to sound like a hypocrite based on what I did. Throughout my entire career, I've railed against crash dieting, aggressive dieting. I've said for years, this is not good. Because the reason it's not good is because you lose lean muscle, lean tissue when you embrace that. And when you lose lean mass, lean tissue, the likelihood that you're going to gain weight after your diet is over is significantly higher. So your long-term outlook is never good when you embrace crash dieting. Sure, it works in the short term, lose a lot of fat, but you also lose muscle. But then you gain back more fat than what you started with. So that's always been my message. But as I spent a lot of time thinking through just the inability to lose weight through traditional dieting for some of these women, I said, okay, let's do this. If a 20 or 25% caloric deficit is just not working, and I think of it as you're just banging your head against the wall, dieting week after week after week. If that's not working, I don't want you to continue beating your head against the wall with a moderate deficit. So what we did was we contradicted everything I've ever preached, and we gave an extremely aggressive caloric deficit and a pretty extreme exercise protocol. So what we had these women do, and this was a case series study, which means we ended up with 9 women. So we put 9 women through this. So there's no control group, there's no comparison.
Do you know the as a reference, like the percentage of the cut for that extreme cut, what it was?
Yeah. I would say effectively what we had them do on average, we had them eat about 300 to 400 calories every day for 4 straight days.
Wow.
Ooh, okay.
The number of calories was really based on 1.6 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight. And that should have been almost all of their calories. So we said, get that. So that's about 0.75 grams times their weight in pounds. And by the way, these are all fit, resistance trained women. We had 3 premenopause, two premenopause, 3 peri, 4 post, 2 on HRT, 2 that were not on any hormone therapy. So, and I'll get to the rationale of this, but I'll explain what we did and then why I decided to do this. So 4 days of 300 to 400 calories of almost all protein. And in addition to that, during these 4 days, we had them walk 6 hours a day. So we stacked that on top.
Wow.
That's mean. That's mean.
Yeah. So it's only 4 days. So why did we do this? Well, I already said the one reason. If you're already dieting and it's not working, and I've heard this from a lot of women, unless I eat 1,200 calories or 1,000 calories or 800, unless I do something so extreme, I can't lose any weight. So effectively what we did was we leaned into this and we said, okay, if the normal moderate deficit isn't working, what about an extreme deficit? Now, historically, horrible idea because you do this for weeks or months. Yeah, you lose weight, but you have all these negative adaptations. Your metabolism gets suppressed, you lose lean mass. But my theory going into this was, since the duration is so short, the body will only respond by losing fat, but because you're out of this deficit so quickly, it's not enough time to lose lean mass. And that's exactly what we found in across every single subject, all 9. They all lost a significant amount of fat. I don't remember exactly, but probably 2 to 3 pounds over the 4 days on average. And they all gained lean mass, maybe around an average of a pound. And we use pretty sensitive body composition devices. We use the 3-compartment model. So we're tracking water, body volume, and body density. So we use a bod pod along with body water, and we use the standard for bone mineral density. So I say all of that. Our body composition measures were very, very precise. The other thing we did to get these measures, after those 4 days, we had them come back to the lab. And that 4th day or that 5th day, your water's all messed up. So any body composition test is not going to be very valid. Right. So we still did it just to see what it was. But then we said, hey, we need you to go back to your normal eating for 3 days. So we calculated like the week prior what their normal eating was. We had them go back to that for 3 days. Then we retested them to confirm you actually lost fat. This isn't all just water changes. You actually did gain muscle or lean muscle, which I didn't expect that, but they did. And they didn't do any resistance training during these 4 days. It was only walking. And then we had them come back 30 days later because we know from prior research, when you embrace these very aggressive diets, a lot of times it causes hyperphagia, which is a extreme elevation in hunger. And what happens is in the short term, people have lost fat, maybe even maintained muscle. But over the next month, their appetite is so high that, again, they're going to gain more fat than what they had to start with. So we wanted to make sure that this protocol wasn't going to cause harm. We knew it then after 7 days, but what about 30 days? Had them come back. They still maintained almost all of their fat loss and still maintained their lean mass gains. So, and we did full blood work to make sure that, we weren't causing any harm. So this protocol, while extreme, I think, and we haven't published it yet, and I'm afraid to publish it because I know people will abuse it. Yeah. But it seems like, well, it doesn't seem, it was, and several of these women were nothing's working for me. So it's extreme enough where the body has to respond, and it does respond by losing fat, but it's short enough to not lose any of the lean mass. And I think it's a viable approach. leans into, again, very low calories, but very short period of time.
That's really interesting. That's really interesting. So what I'm hearing is high protein to protect the muscle, but unexpectedly actually gain muscle from high
From
protein.
walking. Walking was a stimulus for some, and
But
these women were all
hours
resistance trained.
a
Yeah.
day,
I'm
6
wondering if
hours
there was
a day.
a spike in growth hormone from this, and then, but also that you're going from 0 to 60 or 0 to 100 really in this cut for a short period of time, so there's not time for negative adaptations to set in. So you punch it really hard and then you get back out and bring it out. So it's in a sense almost like fasting, but you're supporting the muscle. And
Yeah.
by supporting the muscle with using the protein actually worked as a benefit and actually building muscle even in that calorie deficit.
Yeah, not much. I mean, I'm trying to remember. It's probably like an average of a pound, but
Sure.
I would have expected a
Well,
loss of lean mass
Yeah,
during the 4
that's
days.
what I'm seeing. That's what I'm seeing, and so it's really interesting because it feels like that segment alone could actually expand and go into something, create something actually bigger, as an actual method to be able to, maybe reboot somebody, increase insulin sensitivity, and, get them out of a rut, you know? So it is aggressive. I don't know how many people will sign on to do it, based on our clients. They won't be very happy if I tell them that, but
Yeah, and I look at it like this compared to my previous studies in younger people, they're losing the same amount of fat that a normally would have taken about 4 weeks of dieting. So you can ask yourself, "Hey, I can diet for 4 weeks, or I can just bite
muscle
the
deficit.
bullet, so to speak, and
Yep.
just diet for 4 days." Now, I would like to replicate it and have 2 weekend days instead of 4 straight days, because 4 straight days, if you work, it's very hard
Hard.
to
Yeah.
accomplish that.
mhm.
But if you could do Saturday, Sunday, and then the next Saturday, Sunday, I like that as a more practical, but we haven't tested that yet.
Yeah, because they won't be able to go into ketosis if the protein's that high. That's correct, right?
We tested with those, like, urine sticks, pH sticks, no, and one of the
Ketones.
measurements is
Ketone.
ketones,
Right.
and I know at least 2 of the subjects were according to them, now again,
Mm,
it wasn't saliva and it wasn't blood,
Yeah.
but visually, they were in ketosis by the second night, and the reason we did those sticks was mainly to measure
mhm.
hydration. We wanted to make sure that we weren't dehydrating
Right.
these women, but we also did get ketones estimates, so nothing that I feel like I can publish in the research, but I can say because I saw, they would send us pictures of the sticks. According to the sticks, they were in at least 2 of the women that I remember were in pretty deep ketosis
So
by the end of the second night.
do you recall if the ones that made it into ketosis, if they actually had better results, or was it kind of the same round?
Yeah, the results were pretty consistent.
Mhm.
The woman who lost the most weight and fat was premenopausal, and I had the last subject, I think she was premenopausal, and she didn't like, her lean mass gain was, like, less than half a pound, so it was just, I mean, effectively, she just maintained, so
Right.
I think our premenopausal women had the best and maybe not, I don't wanna say the worst, but the least impressive change, which is interesting.
Yeah, so you went 180 degrees different direction because your original claim to fame that I know you from was giving carb refeeds, high carb days, lower protein, and to trigger weight loss, right?
Yeah,
And
and I think that's
or
still by no means is
yeah, there's
is
a
this extreme fat loss protocol
right.
a one size fits all.
Mhm.
I'm to me, and for menopausal, but you guys are the experts, you're the ones who actually coach them. I would think that you try, if, okay, this didn't work, let's try this. It's almost like you're experimenting with
Yeah.
different approaches till you find something that does work.
And you
Do
have
it.
to. Like, everybody is different. Everybody has different histories and different lifestyles, how their body responds. Even women that are going through perimenopause, you can have 100 women and all of them have different experience, different symptoms, different, what is going on. So that's why I find it like very interesting to be able to do research with this, seeing as hormones fluctuate so much during perimenopause. Everybody has different reactions, different changes with these different hormone levels. And like Matador, we still use Matador with a lot of our clients, like especially the clients like it was designed for people that need to lose a large amount of weight. It is a fantastic tool.
Yeah.
So, we just appreciate as coaches having all of this data and all of this information, all of this research, because it just gives us
new ways to look, new ways to implement with clients to have just more tools in the toolbox. And I think that's just what we're all grateful for, is that all of the time that you are spending doing this and the ways that you are researching, it just allows people to say, so if that's working, I wonder why. And really being able to apply it, I think, is just what makes it most valuable.
That's what makes this so valuable is that, we know that women going into menopause all come from a different place. Like you said, so metabolism's going to be different based on what their lifestyle was. So there's not a lot of certainty in this area right now. There's speculation and things that kind of work, but to have scientific backing to it and to have some things that we know, okay, well, this is safe and this is something that we can use for that. It's been tested with different, participants is very nice. Us is a luxury to be able to have that to pick from as a tool. It's definitely a great thing to have these studies being done. I'm just glad that you're doing them right now. And
Yeah.
then have you found with women going into menopause, like you kind of touched on this before, but if they were regular workout fanatics, like they lived the lifestyle most of their life, and then they go into menopause. Have you noticed, at least with your studies, that they handle menopause differently? Because something that I kind of noticed, and I'm not 100% sure, I was kind of wanted your feedback on this, was for example, I had this competitor a few years back, she's 56, and went through menopause, no HRT, no anything, body very responsive, held muscle, stays lean, the whole thing. But she lives the life. She eats healthy and she's a trainer as well and has done the things. But I noticed a difference with her. And then I noticed a difference with the ones that are fitness related, like they work out, but you have people that live the life and then you have people that incorporate healthy habits into their life, but also go to the other side too, you know, and kind of 50-50 almost. And my experience is the ones that kind of were healthier going in, that lived the lifestyle, seem to kind of coast through, at least from what I've seen, where the ones that were kind of 50-50, I guess you could say, have they kind of struggled more, I think, with it. And I don't know if it's because of the alcohol or what it is and how their body uses that. Have you noticed any differences with this?
I think most of my thinking on this is more anecdotal, which I was going to ask you guys this. So let me just talk through it. I know let me just say, I have a lot of women who are the fitness professionals who former competitors or current competitors and coach other women. And they say, I don't know what's happening. I've tracked every gram. So those are the ones that I'm like, man, I believe you. I've always believed bodybuilders with their nutrition. Anybody else? No, you're
You
We'll
took a
take it
bite
as being
somewhere.
salt.
yes, yeah, you're not counting the olive oil or
Yeah,
something.
yeah.
So,
Yeah.
again, I explain it like this. Out of 100 women who say they can't lose weight from dieting, probably 80 of them just aren't really being honest, aren't tracking
Okay.
closely. There are things that could be easily tightened up for a fitness professional. 20 of them, maybe another 10, yeah, they're just struggling. And then there's another 10 that, man, it seems like they're telling me it is not working. In fact, I'm gaining weight. And again, these are the women who have rosters of clients so I have other fitness professionals and I have plenty of researchers that will tell me they're just lying. They're not. So I'll ask you guys, have you guys come across clients that have everything buttoned up and they can't lose weight? Or no, if they are like what you guys do, there's a predictable weight fat loss response. Like what's your take on it? So I'm asking you as the
I
experts who actually live in the world of coaching these women.
Yeah, I'll say, and I should be a gentleman, like Brooke go first, but I'm going to say that I do feel that when they are on point, like what you're saying, and I know that they stick to it, they do. They have good results. They do. The times that I found somebody like that, that at least came to me, that I know that I can trust them and they're doing the things, it ends up being something that when we run labs, we find something hidden that they didn't even know about, like possibly like an autoimmune disorder or even like long COVID, something like that, which has kind of popped up as of the recent in a few cases. So, but it's in a healthy hormones, at least relative to where they are in that phase. I do find that the ones that stick to it 100%. 100%. It's just a matter of how much progress really, and there's obviously a lot of factors that go into that, but they always make progress. And the ones that are not making progress, it usually ends up that something's not 100% true, with
Hmm.
logging and things like that. So I know Brooke can answer more because this is
I
her.
will have to disagree because I was one of those people that was gaining weight out of nowhere, and it came down to stress. It wasn't my food. My food was 100% on point. My workouts were there. It was stressors going on, and when the stressors started happening, it was like my body went to a different place, and I was gaining and gaining. No, my food was exactly the same. Nothing had changed, but the stress component impacting sleep, impacting my ability to recover. So I do think that there are some women, and especially there are a lot of competitors that are very type A. And when things happen in their world that change their ability to control all of the things, our stress level will impact. Again, it's going to impact your cortisol, which is going to impact your blood sugars, which your body can then switch over and you're just dumping sugars into your body. And I've seen it happen as well, and I've experienced it. And it was something that's really scary because stress before perimenopause, before you start going through that transition, you have the hormones that help with resilience. And once those hormones downregulate, you think I can handle all the things like I did before. I have all the responsibilities. But when you don't have the hormones and the pieces that allowed you to do so, things do go haywire. So, progesterone's dropping. You don't have the resilience for stress. So you're stuck in fight or flight all the time. You are going to be dumping sugars. You are not going to be able to control your insulin sensitivity. Like it's going to be going to a place. But using tools and recognizing it, and being able to see that, I would have to, I'm definitely not the person that was working out before. I definitely had a very rough time through perimenopause. So I tell women now, like, weight train, do your thing because it makes it a lot easier. But those of us that are not, like, when things start happening, you also have to keep in mind, like, the stress component, I think is huge that a lot of people don't realize it's not just calories in, calories out, but the lack of sleep, the stress, and those things also impact body composition.
So, two immediate thoughts. What's very frustrating to me as a scientist, and I've heard for years coaches just like you say, hey, this is mostly bodybuilding competitors. Stress matters.
Mhm.
I just don't know if that's hard to document
Eh,
in research. I'm not saying, I mean, again, I trust coaches. They're the professionals. Researchers are researchers. We're not coaches. The other thing about sleep, there is documented metabolic ward research. Sleep deprivation causes fat loss resistance. It is you cannot find a better quality study when they live in a metabolic ward and they
yeah.
control food intake. Just real quick, they put subjects on 2 times. They had them live in a metabolic ward, I think, for like 2 weeks on 2 different occasions. One time they were sleep deprived, one time they were not. Both times they reduced their calories by 500 calories per day. They lost significantly less fat when they were sleep deprived. Same caloric deficit, same human, so no genetic variability. So weight loss resistance has been documented in the research literature as a consequence of sleep deprivation. And who suffers the most from disrupted sleep during the life cycle?
Hmm.
Middle-aged women going through menopause. And I'm just in my head, I'm making a link. If that can be under the umbrella of stress, it makes sense that stress has was your stress like outside life things happening to you, or was it just hormonal changes?
Outside life.
Right.
Okay. And then that
It wasn't
I was
I was
waving my
thinking it,
hand
but
for
I
the people
wasn't
that
gonna
can't
say it.
see. It's probably me. It's probably me.
But again, you think about sleep anyway. If progesterone is dropping and cortisol is rising, these women are waking up at 3 a.m. They are not getting a full night's sleep. They are not getting a full night's rest. And or hot flashes or whatever the case may be, sleep is going to impact it. And that is the first thing when you're talking with women that we work with. You have to have foundations in place. We have to find a way to get you sleeping, hydrated, the basics. And that needs to come first and foremost, for sure.
Yeah. And interesting, just going back to my wife's situation, again, a lot of issues, but she started on progesterone and her quality of life immediately improved. Like that pretty much
Absolutely.
solved
Absolutely.
all of now not weight though. So nothing. And then she, like a year later, started estradiol. And I get asked when I talk about this with my wife, I get asked, hey, you said your wife gained weight. Where is she at now? Like, has she been able to lose weight? And up until the last month, no, her weight still was higher than what she would have liked. I would say it's probably about 10 pounds, but you know how it is when you're a fit.
100%.
Yeah,
Yeah,
10 pounds
10
is a
pounds is a
lot.
lot.
Yes. And especially when if you're a sedentary woman and you gain 10 pounds, you might not even know it, depending on where you're at. But I would say in the last month or two, for the first time, she has now lost that weight. And I can't necessarily say she tried over the last 2 years consciously dieting. Do know until we had got her hormone therapy, energy levels were in the toilet, no motivation, no energy, not feeling good. But even so, I was really hoping, hey, you take estradiol, you take progesterone, the weight will come off even if you don't try. That did not happen. She is now, which again makes me optimistic for others. Get through this, get things fixed, like you're saying. Let's handle the stress, let's handle the sleep, let's get your hormones optimized. And then maybe when you're through this, again, at least in my wife, that's just an N size of one, things have improved for her, which I haven't. This is the first time I'm saying that because I couldn't say that 3 months ago when
Right.
other people would ask me.
So she has been through the menopause transition. It has been 1
Oh, yeah.
year.
No, she's been postmenopause now for probably 3 years, completely postmenopausal.
Same.
Yeah.
We were in the same spot.
That's why I wonder when I hear that, because I know that women in menopause and perimenopause are very prone to inflammations due to insulin resistance, and I'm wondering if that could be partially what's happening, even like when they're on HRT and having their hormones regulated, and all of a sudden they're not losing weight the way they thought they were going to, or their body's not changing. If it could actually be that they're just more prone to inflammation and the signals in their body for their hormones aren't signaling properly. And maybe it takes a little bit of time for the body to get to that place where the inflammation goes away before the signals start to work. And is there a way to speed that up, for the average person?
Yeah, about her insulin sensitivity, all of the normal tests, so fasting insulin, blood glucose, like they were all good, like I would say normal, but she's always had pretty good blood work.
CRP.
I will say the first time we got her blood work, her CRP levels, which is a systemic inflammatory marker, that was high. And then
Yep.
that has since come down.
Yep.
But I was thinking the same thing, just, I wonder if your blood glucose is, and that wasn't the case for her. And that's where it goes back to it. It's very individualized,
Yeah.
which is so frustrating for me as a scientist. I want to
Right.
change
bet it
A
is.
and expect outcome B.
Yeah.
And
It's-
it's just
when
not
I
how the world works.
when I think about it and I think about the studies, I think of all the details you have to consider to do that. And I'm like, I would lose my mind. I would lose my mind because it is so much. And even like water intake, I'm sure you include that into it. Do you have them regulate their water intake at
No.
all? Or do you have them just drink as is, as they normally do?
Yeah, so for our weight loss study that we're currently planning, no, that's just macronutrient calorie focused. We don't have them track water. And I'll say in research, the more and more things that you ask, the greater and greater people quit. So you have to you want to pull the biggest levers and not overburden a subject. So even in that rapid fat loss, we had them do hydration tests through urine tests. And then if they were dehydrated, we also we gave them electrolytes and said, hey, because I was worried initially, all that walking, some of them live in Florida, low calories. Like I was worried about dehydration, maybe passing out while walking.
Yeah.
So we were on top of it. But even in that study, we didn't make them drink X amount of water. We just made them track their hydration status.
Yeah. Okay. The answer is that, because I know that, dehydration can increase cortisol. And I was thinking of that as one of the possibilities. If you're checking their hydration, then you know that it's okay. And there's not cortisol spikes with that. So I can use that leverage for my clients because I'm trying to get them to drink water. And that's one of the hardest things to do, apparently, to get someone to do that,
some. We did do a Dutch test or two just to look at cortisol. And again, that was normal. So again, it's all the things like you almost want there to be something that says, aha.
Right.
Yeah. You want that. Yeah. For research, you want to see that for sure. And then for like gut health, is that a part of the equation as well? Do you guys run like GI maps or anything like that?
No, I haven't done that. But the more I get into this, I think that's an area that with this philosophy of if not this, then this, if not this, then this, I think that's an area that will eventually I will get to. But again, right now you can only do one intervention because you have to, and it's not like coaching. Coaching, you would be a bad coach if you only changed one thing.
Right.
But in research, if I change three things, then we don't know what caused what. So I didn't make my wife, but I said, hey, let's do progesterone first. What's happening with that? Then we did estradiol. And then she had wanted to do testosterone with estradiol. I'm like, well, if you do both, we're not going to know what caused what. So now we're at the point where she's very dialed in with progesterone and estradiol. And literally this week, she'll make a decision on whether she wants to do testosterone. And let me get your advice on that. What if you have a client who's on, you go on.
100%.
Oh, for testosterone? Yeah. Well, I've seen some do well that have actually been with lower testosterone, but not to their full potential. Always when we catch it, and then say if they do decide to go on testosterone, there's definitely an improvement in their body composition, fuller muscles and more energy, the things that come with it. But I have been able to get females into contests, shape, stage, lean, even in menopause with low testosterone, So it almost seems like it is just relative to the person, how their body takes it. The same as with guys. I've turned guys pro that had 300 testosterone total test.
Wow.
Yeah. And so it's just but some guys could never do that. So I think that's one of those things that it really is, it just depends on the person, and it may be a stress related thing. I don't know, but I have seen it that we can do it. But when they do acknowledge it and do actually get TRT or HRT and it's balanced properly, there's no question. There's no question they advance way quicker, and they just are hitting all the marks in all the areas, But
Just
at the same time, kind of like what we were saying, HRT is not the end all. You still have to do the other things to make that work properly. So that's especially in menopause. If they're eating garbage foods but they're using HRT, they can't expect to really get the same results as somebody that's, doing the things that they should be doing to support it. So it could be that, even with the lower testosterone, if they're eating the right foods, their body's functioning on a high level, that they can still accomplish the same things, but
Well,
probably at the level. Yeah.
that's what's interesting. My wife, she doesn't have low testosterone at all. In fact, I told her normal testosterone levels, and I'm focused a little bit more on the free testosterone. I'm like, your level now, this is what when she wanted to do it maybe like a year and a half ago, I'm like, your level naturally is what other women are taking to get up to. So that was another reason that I said, hey, just keep that in mind when if you want. And again, she didn't want to, but she was asking the questions, and I did though want to not just throw all three at once, because then it's like, well, what do we adjust
Yep.
Well,
if
when
it's not going well?
with her total test was optimal, then was her free testosterone optimal as well, or was the free
Yeah,
testosterone?
no, free was like high. In fact, one time it was so high they retested it. I can't. I want to say it was like 4 points.
Okay, wow, that's
Yeah.
and that was in peri or postmenopause or peri?
We've tested it every year, and again, the next one should come back any day now. I would
Yeah.
say it's always been like high threes, low fours for free, and that's
And
why
again,
I'm like,
just looking at the Dutch to see
Yeah,
how,
but I'm wondering about the androgens. That sounds like
what she's doing.
yes,
androgen.
yes, I do have. We did do. I think we did 2 Dutch tests on that. So yeah, that would be the next logical to see
Yeah.
how it's being metabolized.
Yeah, because again, I always tell people, like, you want to go based on symptoms. Levels are one thing and what's on labs is one thing. But if you feel okay, you're not having any symptoms, like, there's really not a reason, other than if you're starting to have, markers of cardiac issues, you're starting to have, signs of osteopenia, like things like that, that you with estradiol, like, you'll start taking, because there is high risk if you are low, right? If you have a fall when you are older and you're losing muscle mass and you don't have the bone density and you go to fall, you are going to be at high risk that all of a sudden your health will spiral and go into a bad.
Yeah.
Looking at symptoms, but again, looking at risk factors through labs and keeping an eye on things. That's how I usually tell people, because for me, it was like the anxiety came first. So progesterone had to be on board first, and it's life changing for those women that are
That
having
was your story too?
I couldn't go to work sometimes. Like that was my first symptom. And then it was, okay, low libido started coming. And I always tell the story. Like my doctor, the first thing was like, maybe you're just not attracted to your husband anymore. I'm like, nope, don't think that's it. Giving me all the things. And
Do
I
you
was
still
having,
go to that doctor? I don't wanna know. Really?
but this is what most women, here, take
Yes.
some birth control. Here, have, you're can't go to work, like have an antidepressant and it'll chill you out. Like this is what we were told. Like I'm same thing 3 years post and my doctor didn't give me any information. So, when I do things now, kind of like you, I'm doing my post to be able to educate women, validate their feelings and what is going on. So I would ask you, my next question would be with your research and your future research, what would be like your vision, like what you want to be able to do with this research and how you want to make an impact.
I think I would love to have an answer. Does weight loss resistance exist in a certain small subset of women going through menopause? Like, I'm open to, I wouldn't be doing the research if I weren't open to the idea. But yeah, again, I'm not there watching them
Yeah.
track every grams. So that's the
It'll take
research
time.
question I want to
It'll
answer.
take time to get these answers, you know,
Yeah.
and
Yeah, and
sure.
then I think after we get this study going, we're gonna do another case series study where I think you may have heard me talk about this before. Having women who are lifting weights, fitness lifestyle, who have not yet started hormone therapy. Once they start, having them track body composition and metabolites, Dutch test, to see what happens when they start this, because that's again, we don't have research in fit women, doesn't exist. And the current research that does exist on, let's just say, hormone therapy is all over the place, as is the women who reach out to me. I'll just give the example. Hey, I started estradiol. I gained 5 pounds of fat. Another woman, I started estradiol. I just lost 5 pounds of fat. Another woman, I just started estradiol. I don't feel like anything's changed. So the anecdotal stories are all over the place, as is the research with hormone therapy related to body fat.
Yeah. Well, I have currently right now a first timer competitor. She's 45, Perry, and she has Hashimoto's and also is not on HRT. And she's I would tell you they lose a lot of weight in that reverse. When you know that,
Yeah.
right, they do very well with that. But she is crushing it. We're looking at anywhere from a pound to 2 pounds per week in the drops right now. And 45 Parrot, yeah. And so she had to cut out a couple things out of the lifestyle. So she is doing well. So it'll be interesting to see with that one, how that ends up going. Cause, Hashi's is obviously throws a wrench in things, especially when stress comes through, and gut issues are another big one. The gut issues, boy, that would be the one thing that would be worth looking into with menopause, perimenopause. They seems to be pretty common, from the hormonal dysregulation or dysregulation. When I really see that is when they're in prep and they get into that final stage. Everything can go great and
Yep.
great. Then we get in that last month and I could be using refeeds and all of a sudden the refeeds aren't working. Their weight comes up and it just stays up and just holds like an inflammation. Took me a while to figure this out. What was causing this? I'm like, well, I'm reducing the amount of the refeeds. It's still not working. I can give them 1 cup of cooked rice as their refeed and their weight still comes up. I'm like, what is going on? But that stress comes in and then it flares up the gut. And that's what I found is what's happening. So now when we deal with, menopause, kind of address the gut right out of the gate.
What
You
do
know,
what's your, like, just if you were to give a general strategy, what are you doing to at least monitor or even strategy to address? What do you do?
well, as far as to monitor it and kind of establish if they do have a gut issue, a lot of it is just questions, asking them, digestion, are they regular? Those things also.
Watching
Another way
fiber, water.
Another way that we can kinda catch it is, like, if we do a reverse and they start gaining weight, and we kinda narrow things down and say if they are on point with everything, then we find that it's actually an inflammation from not necessarily carbs themselves, but a certain type of carb that causes, like, some have a reaction from sweet potatoes. Right away, that lets me know that something's off with the gut, so that needs to be addressed. So, for us, we like to handle it to kinda combat, like, the low-hanging fruit where we don't have to go to a full-blown gut protocol is, do a reset, like an insulin reset in the beginning where we pull the training out completely just walks at that time and bring them back into that parasympathetic state. But we remove the carbs, bring up the healthy fats, try to get inflammation down and lower protein. So we run that for probably about a week, depending on the severity of it. And then we just follow up with a flush, where we just load them with nutrients, put them into a calorie surplus, still not training at full volumes if they're training at all, even at this point. We typically run that for a couple weeks. And we find that when we do that, that they will start dropping weight in that reset and continue to drop weight into the flesh. So we got 3 weeks of weight dropping. By the time they come out of this, we may not have fixed the gut completely. I would say we definitely didn't fix it, depending on what the issues are, but it's in a much better place. Inflammation is gone. Now we have a way to work with. Then we can establish, okay, we should probably run a GI map or something, or we can get better feedback because their body's not so inflamed. The responses are more precision and detail. We can see them easier once they've been cleaned out, and then we can test the foods. So that's our typical approach with that, but we try to keep it as minimal with supplements as possible, you
Yeah,
know?
and the basics too, like just making sure that they're slowing down what they're eating, making sure they're not running around and doing everything while they're sitting and having a meal, making sure they're chewing their food really well, their fiber is in a good place where their calories are, adequate water and hydration. It's like those basics, eating processed foods. And once you see all of those things and they are moving and active, those things alone for most people will just get things moving. Again,
Yeah.
if there's something more and you see something after that, usually that's the next step is, okay, let's dig deeper and get a GI map and make sure that we're not fighting some other beast that we're not aware of.
And I will say that we have learned that every woman that we have that's in perimenopause come to us if she's been undereating. The first thing we do is an insulin reset every single time. And we find if we do that, then we start to reverse them up. They have much better progress, much
What's
better.
an insulin? Is that just like a keto or a
Kinda like keto, yeah, kinda like keto, a lot like keto, actually, and so we will put veggies in, but carbs, we try to keep them around, total grams around 50 grams, right? And the protein will bring to about zero point 0.8 times lean body mass, so it's low, they're not building muscle that week, but you do that to release the inflammation, and so then the good fats, we bring them up a pretty good amount, but we still keep the calories pretty low. But in a lot of these cases, I'm sure you've experienced this, that these women are eating less anyway. They're coming to you eating like 800 to 1,000 calories a day, and their bodies are so stressed and inflamed that when we put them on that reset, even though it's low calories, probably their basal metabolic rate, it's still actually an increase from where they were, and they're very responsive to it, and usually more protein than what they're eating, even at that low amount. So it pushes the protein up a little bit. They come in, we get them out walking. It's like pulling teeth to get them to not train because now they're under eating and they're training like crazy and their weight just drops. We've seen huge drops, but if we get that inflammation out and kind of burn through some of that excess glucose and then start working the protein back up and then working the carbs back up and shifting it over, it's almost a no fail that when we start that reverse, that we had one of ours, was she 60 years old, maybe I think 25 pounds on her reverse alone before she even got to a cutting phase.
yeah. You ever use the flush diet as like a starting point or no, that's always after?
We do
I
more now. We do now. We didn't in the beginning, but
How does
we've
what
learned that.
has been how is that what is your impression of that? Effective for some, not all?
It,
Not
it,
not all, I would say, but
I think,
I would say a pretty good amount. I mean, my clients that I'm using that with, you know why? Because many of the people that we start doing it are the undereaters. So
Yeah.
breaking their calories up, releasing, some cortisol because they've been so chronically undereating, giving their body the nutrients and lots of antioxidants, lots of healthy fats to bring inflammation down. And just again, protein is on the not I would say moderate, but again, that helps. So if they do have digestive issues from whatever they've been doing in the past, it rests the digestive system. So overall, we get a really good response from it. But again, it's just to each person and what they were doing before. I had someone that was eating 300 calories. I don't know if she did your study, kind of hung out there and did it for like a couple of years, but I got her and she was 300 calories.
yeah,
That's all she was eating
Oh,
forever. And she's like, my weight's stuck. I'm like, okay. So we reversed her and the same thing. She lost like probably about 30 pounds in the reverse. And I got her all the way up to like 2,200 calories.
wow, that's
And
she
awesome.
was mid Mid
weight.
60s, I believe, on that one. Her stomach went away. It was definitely a thing. You know, I think with the flush, one thing that I think kinda makes a difference is their insulin levels, because
Yes.
the flush is really good at bringing insulin up and kinda getting it to fire off correctly because, you know, with stress, that insulin can drop and then the pancreas isn't really firing off well and it's not delivering that. So the flush is great for that and can kind of get but that's why we do the reset first just to kind of clear out glucose and do that. But the reset works a lot. When we don't see them drop weight in a reset, we know there's an issue, you know, right away
Mhm.
with that. And so, and it's probably cortisol, you know, because, you know, pulling the carbs and having that, that's when we flip over to a flush anyway, you know, because the flush will kind of go in and it kind of counters. It's 180 degrees different direction, two pair well with each other. But um, with menopause, it's just kind of become a staple, you know, with that, you know, and we push those calories up. These women are eating almost 2,300 calories and they're dropping weight, you know, and so it's,
That's when you can see that and when they can see that, like, wow.
yeah. Yeah, it's very common, very common. So I do pull their calories back after that, you know, but they're open to it, and when they do that, it goes and I use that same method with the flesh too, with competitors, bringing them out and rebuild them. You know, I had a girl come to us from another coach that they just put this poor girl through the ringers, you know, and sh it was ridiculous, the diet she was on, and right away, I gave her a couple weeks, and I put her right into the flush, and she was able to get her period back within that before the week was even over. So the
Wow,
increase in fats and the carbs brought the cortisol down and it got her hormones starting to stabilize. And so it can work the same way because a woman coming out of prep is very similar to menopause in a lot of ways, you know. Hormones are down regulated, you know, and so
yes, and
that's
you're a sponge for increasing fat gain at that point.
right, right. So that's the big struggle is getting that back into a good place again for the natural competitors. Not much different than menopause. Well, it is different in a sense because menopause isn't just naturally going to have the hormones go back into optimal. We know that. But the approach can be very similar and the results to get them kick-started to go in, I've noticed are very similar, you know, at that. So they still go hand in hand. So you probably shouldn't stop researching the bodybuilding stuff.
Yeah.
Or use
Uh,
them, mesh them together.
It's effectively what I do, I think.
yeah. Well, I know we're coming up on a little over an hour here, so I just wanted to check and make sure that we didn't have any other points that we wanted to hit on. Anything else that you wanted to share with your new research?
Uh, no, I think I've discussed all of the menopause research that we've completed or are conducting or will conduct.
And you're still looking for participants?
Yeah, I mean, we're not officially recruiting for the weight loss resistance study, but if anybody's interested, they can email me. I'll give my
Yeah,
university
I'll put it in the
address.
show notes for sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I am
Um,
curious. Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Did you have something?
uh, no, I was just yeah, so and I don't know when this will go live, but maybe by the time it goes live, we'll be officially recruiting.
Oh,
Awesome.
very cool. Well, I did have one thing, and I'm assuming that you haven't touched onto this yet, but I'm so curious about this. If you've noticed, or if it's something even worth looking to at some point, a difference in ethnic backgrounds and how they handle menopause, you know, based on how they were brought up, you know, ethnically or even culturally, you know, like say, for example, Greece, much slower lifestyle, much less stress, not rushing around. How are those women in menopause handling menopause in comparison to the US, you know, or in China, you know, how are they handling a comparison? What's the difference in lifestyle and why they're doing better? You know, because if you think about here, and this is what you hear a lot, is stress, you know, that's a big one, and all these different things, and the rest and the sleep. You know, we finally made it to Greece, and that's the thing we noticed is they're doing all those things. So I'm wondering, and also eating Mediterranean diet, you know, in
Uh-huh.
addition to that. So how are these women looking that are going through menopause there in comparison to here in the States? You know, it it was a thought that crossed my mind. I didn't think that that was something that you had reached over to yet, but I'm curious about that because I
No,
haven't seen
that's
research on that in
our
comparison.
our survey study, which we had over 4,000 women, but it was predominantly white, middle
Mhm.
class, so it was not a good cross
Right.
sampling of
Sure.
race or
Yeah.
ethnicity, and that's true of a lot of the survey research. There was a 2019 study that was the best study I've ever read about the menopause transition, body composition changes. White and black women had the most fat gain. Asian women did not have much at all, significantly less compared to American white and black women. So that's some of my about the extent of my knowledge of body composition changes. And then just in my own, our survey research, not a very diverse group at all. And that's
Right.
one of I would say that's a limitation of our survey.
All right. Do we got time for one more question? Maybe
One more
two?
question, Alvin.
So, all right. All right. These are the hard questions. So brace yourself for
All
this.
right.
So it's 1990. What car are you driving right now?
Dodge Aries.
Oh.
I knew it'd be something along. I had a Ford Turismo, so you know. All right. So you're in your Dodge Aries and you're going out with your buddies or going out with your girlfriend at the time. What cassette tape are you putting in as you leave the house and you're going to have your night out?
Rocky 3 soundtrack. So Eye of the
Oh,
Tiger.
that's the one right there. I think that's what got me into bodybuilding. I swear it was right around middle school. It was a Rocky movie. And
All more reasons for the man crush. Here we go.
And technically in 1990, I was 15, so I wasn't driving.
Oh my.
Maybe I was driving. I was not driving any friends at that point. So I was a year away from my license.
Oh
yeah,
my.
yeah. I tell you, Rocky, you know, the funny thing about that is that, you know, it's all the workout videos and everything or the workout scenes in those movies that just got us pumped up. I mean, that just created our
It was the
generation
best.
right there. And the irony of it all is here we are older and we're like, the diet's 80%, really. The training is just a small thing. But that just is not as sexy in movies. You know, you just see a training portion of the movie and what they're doing is eating their eggs and they're measuring out their food. But that's the
Yep.
reality is that's really where the money is. So
All
anyway.
right, guys. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Campbell, for joining us. We really, truly appreciate you being here.
Yeah.
And thank you, everybody, for tuning in. And if you wouldn't mind dropping a review and please save and share with your friends. This is such a great episode and brought so much value. Thank you again, Dr. Campbell. And we will see
Thank
you
you so
guys
much.
soon.
That was great.
Thank you.
Thank
Thanks for tuning in to Master Your Metabolism. If you found value in today's episode, it would mean the world to us if you'd hit subscribe and share this episode with someone who could use a little guidance in their health journey. Ready to take the next step? Head over to www.mastersfitnesscoaching.com and you can book a free call right from the site so we can chat about your goals and how we can help support you. Don't forget to join our Facebook group where we're sharing coaching tips, support, and tricks to help keep you on track and continue making progress. You don't have to do this alone. We're here to walk with you every step of the way. Until next time, stay consistent, stay kind to yourself, and keep mastering your metabolism. Let's do this together.